Welcome back to Film Study, an all-American podcast with Lexi. I am Lexi, and I'm so excited to talk about episode 11. I got to discuss it with my friend Monda Kendall from YouTube. If anybody is in the YouTube streets, you know of Monda, okay? And so we just had a really cool conversation about episode 11, the bigger picture. So hope you enjoy. So I am so excited to hop into this episode with Monda. Okay, if anybody knows Erica Vane's YouTube community, I know we talked about this last episode, but you know Monda because she calls her out in almost every single video with her love of Olivia, and we share that. I think she's a little she rides harder for Olivia than I do, but we both have mutual respect for Olivia. We both love Liv. So excited to have you here and to talk about episode 11, which is what was the name of this episode? There's
I have no clue.
The names are running together. It'll be in the description.
Yeah.
But yeah, so getting started right off the bat, we have our favorite character, Olivia Baker, on her podcast, and she basically talks about labels, and she talks about labels for her as an addict, as the DA's daughter, as a twin, and she sort of goes through that process. What we don't know as the viewers is that was actually from the ending of the episode, and that was sort of superimposed in the beginning. So when we hop into the episode, we see her sort of doing this podcast. But we also see, like, Spencer randomly with fans.
Yes.
I didn't really understand. What did you think about that?
So for those of you who know me, I'm a Spencer, how do I say this? A special fan, not so fan of Spencer. So, these fans.
He is a byproduct of Olivia's happiness.
Yes, in my case, that's all I see him as at this moment. For these fans to run up to him, I'm like, he only did like a certain game. Like, he didn't do that much for him to be having these fans run up to him. Now, I understand the gentleman at the restaurant being excited because he had a sandwich named after him, right?
Yeah.
And so I get him like being very much in tune with what Spencer's doing and for the community. But these fans, these random people, I'm like, okay, you randoms, I'm gonna need you to get up out the shot. This is not what I want to see right now. Yep. This is not what I want to see right now. But you get to see that he's like the big man on campus again, right? And and what people want to see, like, and what a lot of fans want to see. I could care less, really, because he's a byproduct of my fictional baby sis, as I like to call Olivia Baker. So, but yeah, that's how I saw that scene. So.
And it was interesting. This is such a random thought, but I was just like, the Hangout has gotten much more popular.
That's actually
over the season.
That's the Crenshaw place. That's not the Hangout. Where he was at was at the Crenshaw.
You know what I call it? It's called Slausson's, right? I always get it mixed up. I'm always like the Crenshaw Hangout. Sorry. So they're at Slausson's.
Yes.
And Slausson's, though, has become more popular over the course of the seasons.
So
and I'm
popular.
like, is this, like, are they, like, slowly introducing gentrification? They've sort of introduced gentrification in season 2, but, like, I don't know. It's just gotten more hip. We see more white folks there.
Yeah,
I mean,
you see more high schoolers there.
Yeah,
and more adults there. So it's kind of like the community hangout, right?
Yeah. It's definitely become more of a fixture since Spencer has transferred back to Crenshaw for sure. So we see him, and then sort of right after that we get into the Jordan storyline, which I think we're gonna go by like importance of storylines. But so Liv is talking to her twin, and he was down bad at the end of the last episode, and he's still down bad.
First of all, can I just say I was living for him being down bad, particularly when the fact that
Jordan doesn't get no love from you.
Not at this moment, particularly because I needed him not to be like CTE and everything and concussions are very like serious, right?
Yeah,
And I needed
for
him to
sure.
sit his behind down. Like I needed him to
Hmm.
just sit down. I didn't want him to sit down in this way, but I still just needed him to sit down and like understand what he was doing to himself and his body.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
what was the
Well,
bonus?
and
Okay, go ahead.
well, no, no, I was gonna say, and it's so interesting because I feel like, at least me as an audience member, I thought that he had like sort of like stopped, like once he cheated that concussion protocol, and once Simone had found out, I had assumed that he stopped because Simone was just like, okay, this affects us.
Right.
But I guess he never stopped cheating.
I
Apparently, he didn't stop cheating, and so now it's this longer term
I also
thing.
think it's like an after fact, so it's all building
Mm.
up on each other too.
Yeah,
So
yeah, for
because
sure.
he never let his body like truly heal.
Recover,
Yeah,
exactly, exactly.
and so he kept, he kept pushing it and kept pushing it. And at the time that he was doing it, I was like, I hope some of my student athletes is actually watching the show, and I need them to
Mm.
sit their behinds down
Yeah,
when you get hurt. Um,
yeah.
but the piece that I was living for was Laura
What?
walking through the house like, I want this fraudulent
Marriage
marriage
annul.
annulled. Get it done.
Yeah.
I was
Well,
here
because he
for it.
was sitting playing video games, and it's just like, do they not go to school anymore? Like, where is this? Because the whole episode took place in a day, which I didn't
Right. I
originally
think
think,
it
but
was
it
probably
took
on
place.
on a weekend. I think this was like a
Yeah,
weekend
it was.
day.
It seemed like a Saturday or
Yeah.
something. But Jordan is sitting down, but apparently he's been sitting in that same spot for 2 weeks, according to Liv.
Yeah.
Simone hasn't called him in 2 weeks. Simone is
Yes.
always. I have love for Simone. I think she's
You do.
hilarious.
I don't.
I think she makes some bad decisions. Uh,
Bad
quite
decisions?
often, quite often. But I
Bad?
still like. I root for her as a black woman.
I'm glad you root
But
for her.
one thing that is certain is that when the going gets tough, Simone is nowhere to be found near Jordan. Like
Ghost. Like, so
nowhere.
ghost him right now. But I
In the
think,
beginning of the season,
right.
she left him when she had the not left him, but you know what I mean. She was
Right.
going through something as she was having the baby, and then now we see again her just sort of not, even with the parents thing. Like she sort of kind of told him, but she wasn't really like open about it when
Right.
she was trying to get the baby back, and now we see after the marriage is found out, and this could just be her parents
I think
being
it's her
very strict.
parents. Because
Yeah,
I love that he was like, I think she's in a convent, like, so far away.
and yeah, exactly. In
And Liv was
Tanzania.
like, I don't think it's that far away, but she is in a convent. I'm like, give the shade, Liv. Like, because he deserves it
Give
at
the
this moment.
shade. We love sober Liv coming back with her regular amount of sassiness.
But can I tell you, I was so
Mhm.
ready to snatch Billy through the screen
Stop.
when he
Stop.
was like, "Let's put a pin in the marriage and let's focus
What
on his
was
health."
that?
I said, if this was Liv, you would have
He
like
would be going off.
you would have took her down to the courthouse. Like, I need this done.
And here is the thing, and the funny thing is, I like in the trailer for this show, right? I was just like, we're gonna hate on Coop, but the Coop hasn't really been that bad in the past couple
Right,
episodes.
right.
Billy, on the other hand, this
Oh.
is definitely becoming a Billy hater show, and I'll tell you why. This man said nothing. He was unconcerned last week when he found out about the marriage, and now he goes to Laura and is like, why do we have to annul the marriage right now? Sir! Sir! What? After you were screaming in Olivia's face 2 weeks ago? I just...
I swear, I can't wait till we get to the scene where when he was at Spencer's house, and I'll tell you how I set up that dynamic.
That too.
Yes,
He
a mess.
I say this every week, and I will continue to say it. He is more of a dad to
Yes.
Spencer than he is to either Jordan or Olivia.
He's not a dad to Olivia at all. He's just someone who pays for her bills.
Facts, but I was trying to be generous.
That was nice. He just pays her bills. Like, that's about it in this case.
We as we get into what went down with Billy, we're gonna get into that.
Yes.
We're gonna get into that. But
Right.
on the other hand, so we see that whole thing. Jordan is sad and down. I'm just gonna run through his storyline because it was sort of short. But
Right.
JJ and Asher come and try to cheer him. Not even cheer him. I don't know.
They were trying to get him off the couch, like get him
Yes,
moving.
I wouldn't call it a cheer up. I think they
Right.
were trying to get him off the couch because Billy had called Asher, which
text Asher, and
question mark, but we won't even go there.
and Spencer Spencer called JJ, which is fitting.
JJ.
Because he
Yes,
wasn't going to
yes.
call Asher to save his soul.
He was not gonna. Spencer does not care about Asher.
So calling
yes.
JJ, yes, that was fitting. That was very much fitting.
So Jordan's family was looking out for
Right,
him.
very much so.
And they called those two guys and they tried to get him off the couch. Somebody said this on Twitter and I was just like, this is absolutely correct. Jordan is mean when he's sad. Like he just gets rude. Straight rude.
He went in on JJ, and I was like, you will never do that to JJ. I said, JJ's the last. I said, you can go off on Asher all you want to. You will not do that for JJ.
He was just like, you're not fit. You can't play QB. I was just like, dude, what is going on with you right now?
And JJ gave me life, because I would have took that game system, too. It was like, you will see me on the field.
Stole the Xbox.
Yep, I'm taking it.
Meet me on the field.
Meet me on the field. Since you want to act like you got no sense, I'm going to treat you like you have no sense. So, yeah.
Exactly. And so through that episode, we see sort of Jordan going through it. And meanwhile, in the other twins' life, Liv and Nurse Joy, we see them warming up to each other a little bit, which I loved.
I love, because last week, you know what? I wasn't sure how I felt about her. I'm still on the iffy side.
Really?
I am.
I like Nurse Joy. I didn't like that we didn't get to see the full realm of like why she started drinking, or at least why I believe she started drinking. But go ahead.
I also think that Nurse Joy has, and this is just me, has a certain lens of who Liv is based on how she was introduced to Liv, right? She was a privileged young lady who came through with her friend who got shot.
Yeah.
And then how you then get introduced to her again at the time is that she's at this AA meeting and you're like, you're a long way from home. Hello, can you just say hello to me first? Like, how are you? Like, we got some problems. You need to take whatever chip on your shoulder off so we can really get to know each other. She is what Liv need, and that bonding of the two of them at the coffee place is what I was here for. That was like the fictional date that everybody thought Olivia was going to have, and I was like, they're not having a date, y'all. Get over it.
You did say that. You're correct. Because everybody was just like, Daniel, who plays Spencer, posted a little behind the scenes, and we thought it was going to be not even, maybe just like a coffee hangout, like he was working or something.
But she was literally just practicing her lines, and I was like, it simply is that. And I said, if they see each other, it's going to be for a hot second. And someone didn't believe me, and sure enough, it was a hot second.
It was for a hot second, but so basically, Liv and Nurse Joy were having their, I guess, I want to say daily, because I think that she's, for now, is sort of going to these daily sort of meetups with her sponsor, and so they were talking about it. Liv was, again, sort of off the bat trying to be evasive about how she was feeling with her sobriety, and we've seen her do this before, just sort of like ignoring her actual real feelings, and Nurse Joy was just like, try again, and I loved it. It's just like, yes, push her to be honest with herself.
Right.
So Liv was actually like, it is a hard day for me, and I don't really know why. And I think that was good for the audience to see, because as we've been like wanting these reasons, we do have to realize that she is an addict. And
sometimes there's no reasons. Sometimes there's no reason around it. It's just it's a vice that she's used to, right? And so she doesn't know why she wanted it or why she felt that she needed it at that moment, but that's just something that she needs. And there's stages of addiction that people need to understand that, and how that addiction feeds into who they are, right? And all of that. So, yeah.
For sure. And then we see Spencer walk up. Spencer done ignored Nurse Joy, was just like, they both forgot about Nurse Joy for a couple seconds there.
So I put a post in Erica's Veins community, and I was like, hey community, at what point did Liv and Jordan not live together? That Spencer was like, have you heard from Jordan? I was like, sir, she lives with him. She hears from Jordan constantly. She looks at him when she wants to. Like, I'm confused.
I didn't even think about that, because my brain processed that as like, how is Jordan? But he did say, have you heard from this man?
And this man was confused, and first of all, he didn't expect to see her as he was walking into work, and it just took him for like, it was the run-in he wanted last week when he went to the hangout, and he got it. He got it this week with her just minding her business. and he didn't and he didn't expect somebody else. He didn't even notice the next person on the other side. So Nurse
He
Joy
did not. She
was
had to
like,
be like, hello.
hello.
I love Nurse Joy's reaction. Nurse Joy was the audience in that moment. Like, okay, you too. Because it was, I'm gonna be so honest. I'm living for their interactions now because they're just so
They
hilarious. Like,
are.
they are really funny. Liv checking him out,
Right.
full on checking him out as he's walking away.
And I said this on my way back to my house for a meeting with you. I said, but this is the first time she could actually do it without feeling guilty.
Yes,
Cause
without feeling guilty.
Right, because there was Layla and Asher and
Mm-hmm.
everything, and so her checking him out, looking at him was like always something of I can't do this,
And you know what?
and this is the
I
first time she could.
also, yeah, exactly. And I also was just like, and it's sort of almost a parallel to the beginning of the season, right? When they're at the hangout, she's with Layla, and she can't even look at him. She can't even look at him because it's so close to what happened in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we talked about this. He was petty, and he kissed her. He kissed Layla in front of Liv, and she looked down, like, and Layla obviously noticed it.
She
And
noticed it
so
too because
it's
Spencer just said by Liv as the pettiness
ex-
that he did, but that's a whole other
exactly
issue.
right. And so now we're getting to see them interact, like both being aware of each other's feelings, still not being able to sort of act on it because of the place that they're both in, specifically Liv with her sobriety. But we see them sort of starting to be more open about their feelings, and I've missed Liv longing for Spencer because it's so like Samantha just plays sort of vulnerability so well, and so I've missed those moments getting to see how Olivia is in love.
And I truly like the idea too of her knowing that she can have happiness,
Yeah,
even if it's with him. And you know how I say it, with him.
with or without Spencer,
Yeah, with
but
or without
we
Spencer,
know
my
that Spencer
happiness.
makes her pretty
Yeah,
happy,
right
given
now.
the look on her face as he came up and walked
Yeah,
away.
but then I'm questioning, like, are they friendship like completely off right now? Are they cold turkey, like not engaging with each other? And what
Yeah,
is
so
that? And what does
that
that
was interesting
mean?
too because we saw at the so further along in the story, they have that moment where they talk about Jordan.
Right.
uh they also are sort of going, so while this is also happening, Spencer is finally getting some sort of recruiting attention,
Right.
and we see somebody from like this, I think it's a made up college called
Yeah.
TNT, and he's coming and he's trying to recruit Spencer over to him, and he's just like, "Oh, we can work on your branding, we can work on your image," and Spencer isn't really trying to hear all that. He's like, "What is this?"
Right.
He was just like, "Yeah, we can set you up with an Instagram." I was just like, I didn't even know that college
They do that.
football players had. I had
They
no
do
clue
that.
about that. But it was interesting to see that side of them just being like, we can brand you as this person, almost like a celebrity, which I guess they would be.
They want. So what happens is in modern NCAA, they try to have student athletes brand themselves, but of course they can't make money. It's a long story on that history. But
And that's starting to be reevaluated with the
yes,
California law,
yeah, very
with the
much so.
NCAA,
And so,
which is good for
right,
specifically for Black men. Who wanted to shout that out
yes,
because
very much so.
their images have been made
Right.
colleges tons
Some
of
money.
money, tons of money.
And so they come in with these pre-made packages of these student athletes of how they want to tell their story. And we saw with this one recruiter, they wanted to have it like Spencer gets shot. He recovers from from being shot and blah blah blah.
And
And Spencer's like, I'm not
wanted
a
to brand him
gangbanger.
as a bad boy,
Well, yeah.
boy Spencer Jeans.
And he was like, I'm not a gangbanger. I'm not a bad boy. I got shot. I took a bullet for a friend. I got back on the field. Like, that's me.
Yep. I'm a worker. Yeah,
Yes.
what we know is that Spencer is going to work hard, and so yeah, we also see Coop overhearing this as she's studying for her GED, and yeah, we see the beginnings of Coop and Spencer maybe sort of reconciling, but on Coop's side, which I and we'll get into this as we talk about sort of the rally for Tamika, but I've figured out that the scenes that I love Coop in is really her friendship with Spencer, because I think that's a friendship that's really well done on the show, and not seeing them be friends has it's just Coop is just at her best when she's friends with Spencer. I don't know how else to phrase that.
I agree. So some people don't understand. Like my like of Spencer, because that's when he gets put in a like column, is when when he's friends with Coop, right, and the vulnerability around that relationship. Him
Yeah.
being a brother to Dylan, and the vulnerability around that relationship. And then his relationship will live in the vulnerability around that relationship. Those were the three
Yeah.
things that like drew me to like liking Spencer. All that other stuff about him being an athlete, blah blah blah. I didn't care about that. That's my everyday life. I don't care about that. I want
Said I get enough of that in real
right.
life.
I wanted to see this young man and how he navigates these relationships and how vulnerable he is to do that. Like I always
Yeah.
said, if you ever want to know how Spencer's feeling from season 1, 2, and 3, there's 3 people you need him to be around. I don't put Grace in this category. It's Dylan.
Really?
No,
Because it's about it. No, this is my mom's.
yeah, but
Coop. What about my mom's?
the moms is always going to bring emotions out of him, right? And that's because she
true.
raised him. So it's always 3 people. It's Coop, right? It's Dylan, and it's Liv. And the reaction he has around the 3 of them will really tell you how he's truly feeling. Like he can mask things with certain people, but with the 3 of them, ain't happening.
This is true. This is absolutely correct.
It will come out in one shape or form, either through words or through his expression. It will come out on how he's feeling.
That's true.
So.
That's true. And so we follow Coop, Spencer, and Liv, and Kia's also there, and we also Grace and Dylan, but they weren't really in the like they didn't have dialogue in that scene. But we see them at the rally for Tamika, who is this young woman who got shot in her car, and Coop has one of her best rap performances.
Yes, she
poetry,
does.
and that has ever been on the show. And I'm not even gonna lie, I've made a couple jokes about Coop's rap, but this one was it. This one was it.
I want to know if Breezy had a hand in writing some of that. Or
I think so, because I think she writes Coop's raps, right?
Yeah, but that was a little bit too good. So is it a combination of like the writers
and
Breezy together? Because it's for the narrative of that particular set.
I feel like Breezy put a little bit more of what she would normally do, like in this rap. Whereas like before, she was writing for the character of Coop.
Right.
But because this was so just real life, right?
Right.
We're living in the middle of it right now.
Right.
With everything with Makia Bryant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's real life, and so it was just so authentic, so real. From that rally on, really was just like so real to what Black people go through daily.
What was very like, which hit me in my heart is when Liv goes there and she goes, "Why is there not that many people?" And Key was like, "This is the number of people I expected, considering the issue, right? But also considering it's a woman." And how people show up for the death of a woman, let's keep it real talk, then the death of a man, particularly men of color and women of color, is how they rally around it and how they see the importance around it. And I love that in that element you saw like so few people to really get you to understand what this looks like when people don't really care, it doesn't feel like it touches their particular home, right? Or their particular issue at hand. So that in itself was powerful to see. What was also powerful, like we said, was Coop's rap, but also Liv's reaction as she started to understand.
I was just about to say it because Coop's rap centered around Black women, and props to NK for this episode, specifically for how she wrote that, and for her pitching this idea, and for her sticking with this idea, and writing this, because it is true that like Black women's shootings, killings, murders don't get the same attention, and so to do it on this grand scale that's on network television is really kudos to her. It sucks that this has to be the case, that like we're talking about this and it's so present, but to tell this story is courageous and brave, and that should be honored. And so to see that dichotomy of Coop doing that poetry And then to see Liv's reactions, because we know that as a character, she just went through a very similar experience. And can I say, and you and I connected on this because I was just like, I knew that this storyline was coming up and that it was going to affect Liv, but one of my hopes was that it wasn't just going to be sort of connected to what she realized about Spencer, because I think that she
Understood
knew
it
that
at that point.
she knew what she asked Spencer for was wrong, and that was a very much in her non-sober state. But I was so grateful that they took the opportunity to tell the story that she saw herself in this woman.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it wasn't about anybody else
Right.
necessarily, but it
Right.
was about, like, I could have died, and
Right.
I did not because of my privilege. Number one, that my mom is white. Number two, that my mom is the DA.
Right.
And to see her come to that realization as Coop is giving this performance, and as she's sitting and taking in everything, was really just wow.
It was interesting because we'll have people who probably listen to this podcast was like, but then she made it about her, and I'm like, actually, she didn't. What she
Mm-hmm.
did was try to parallel their lives and
Yeah.
say, well, I have this privilege, this young lady didn't, and she had, as she said to Spencer, she had the wherewithal to actually pull over and rest and not continue driving, as I didn't, right? And she
Yeah.
still didn't make it home safely, right?
Yeah.
And to do that and to have her in those emotions and have Spencer bring his little happy self, not so happy self over.
He was trying to comfort her. I
He
gotta
was
defend Spencer right there.
okay. He was trying to comfort
And
her.
he knew what she was thinking, and
He was,
he
because
told her not to compare.
they read each other like nobody's business. They don't have.
They do.
And she's like, I'm that obvious. I was like, no, that boy can read you a mile away, and you can read him a mile away, even if y'all are not looking
Exactly.
at each other.
Even if y'all are in some weird, awkward limbo phase that you're in
Right.
right now.
Y'all can read each other, and y'all can read what's
Exactly.
going on in body language and all. And he tried to get her to not go down that lane, but it's hard.
And then she went down it anyway,
Right,
because
it's hard.
lit.
It's Liv, one.
It's lit.
And two, you have to recognize too, it's hard for a woman, a black woman, to be able to say, don't compare yourself to that. But like, look what I did, and look and how I got home, and look how she didn't. And so and so it's so prevalent because her thing only happened 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And so it's not like it was a year ago or anything. It's 2 weeks ago. She's still feeling the effects of it. Her family's still feeling the effects of it. She's not in a friendship relationship with you at this moment, Spencer. So it's still all like at the very top of her mind, and she has to
Your
process all
subtle
that.
disdain for Spencer is it's just making me laugh so hard. Yes, accurate. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. That was
No,
funny.
I just like and then so here's my thing that I was like, if this boy touch her one more time, because he like you know
I'm
that
surprised he didn't grab her arm.
I know.
Somebody said they went from like hugs to hand holding to that awkward shoulder thing. They're just in a really
Dave's in a weird like
space.
he doesn't know how to talk to her. He don't know how to touch her. He doesn't
They
know how to.
don't know how to. Yeah,
and-
I'm convinced they don't know how to talk to each other, because, like Kendra said in the last episode, she was sort of talking to herself but out
Right.
loud, and
Right, and
yeah,
in this case,
it's been weird.
she was talking to him, and it was like she was talking out loud too. Like, I need to
Yeah.
like process this, and I do appreciate that he allowed her to talk it out and not cut her off. Like he started at
Yeah.
the beginning, like don't compare, but then he just let her let's just process this out, right? But then and he touches her, and then she just was like, no, I have to fight for Tamika, and as she walks off, he doesn't even know how to say stop, like Liv, come back. He's like
Yeah.
oh, she's
And-
gone in it. So
Yeah, and that propels. Liv is definitely the character that was sort of progressing this story forward, because we see her then go and talk to Laura, which I've said it before, but again, I have love for Laura.
I do
and
too.
Laura was just not it in this episode, but we see Liv go and talk to Laura, and Laura very much, she's just like, why haven't you released the police footage? You have it. I know that you have it. And Laura's just like, oh, your situations were different. And Olivia's just like, because my mom is white and the DA, like, that is the only. And she acknowledges, that's the thing, she acknowledges that what she did was way worse
Right.
than what this young woman did to
Right.
me.
And see, and then this is where I had to like take myself out of like watching the show, and because I rock for Laura. I don't care what nobody say. I am ready for Laura to go off on everybody and their mom and no holds bar. I'm
Yeah.
ready for her to do it, and I will root her on. Like even if it's Liv, I'm ready for her to just like slice into everybody. I'm so ready for her
Yeah.
at this point. But I had to remove
How
myself.
Liv was talking, yeah. For sure.
Yeah, I was like, Liv, baby, Laura, let's not do this to Laura right now.
Let's not disrespect the mom.
Yeah, but Liv needed to get her point across. But then I had kind of removed myself because you and I have talked along with other people about how NK places Laura in the story and how Laura is seen as an outsider. In some kind of way, like, does she belong in this family? Does she understand the path in which these people, that her biracial children go through, or the path that her black husband go through, and everything? And I was like, oh, NK, please don't do this to Laura at this moment. Like, she doesn't need one more. She already got last week with
after Liv being relapsing, or them finding out that Liv relapsed, and then right after that, Jordan getting a concussion, and the marriage involved, and now,
I was like,
Simone popping off. And then to the very next week, we'll talk about, but people have already seen the episode, so maybe potentially lose her job.
Yes, I said I don't want this to happen to Laura. Like, Laura doesn't need to go through these stages and things. But then I was thinking, is this an opportunity for Laura to be pivot and do something different, right? Because Laura has been the mom, the DA, but what is really, because both her kids are about to graduate.
Yeah, what are her motivations? Yeah,
right. And so, and what is her and how does she see herself in the line of justice? Because she was an assistant DA and helping Coop them like crazy. I said, I've never seen an assistant DA go hold people down like that. Never.
She was showing up to Crystal, hiding in bathrooms.
She was doing it all. And I was like,
she was doing it all. And not really, which is interesting because we see her talking about like the process and certain rules and restrictions. She, if I'm correct, she broke some of those rules for Coop as well.
Yeah, she did. Very much so.
Yeah.
And I
so
said...
it's... Yeah. And just the part about her being a part of a black family, we've seen efforts by her to, again, still instill black culture as much as she could.
Right.
Like, obviously with outside influence, Soul and Muse, etc. Basically to keep Olivia and Jordan sort of, in their words, right, anchored to their black culture. And so it will be very interesting to see her journey as we figure out more of how she views her kids, how she views, how she views the black people in her life and the black people outside of her life, because she knows Spencer, right? So she knows these individual people, but does she realize the systemic issue? And I think I'm really excited to see that story.
I actually think she sees this systemic issue. She doesn't know where's her place in how to rectify it and resolve it. And,
same. So I'm excited to have her explore that.
Yeah, and I'm glad that Toxic's grandpa wasn't coming through on Willie.
Oh, yeah.
Because if he came through this episode, I would have swore I would have turned off my TV because I would have snatched him.
GW would have went off. On to that point, yes. So we have this whole thing with Liv and Liv and Laura, but at the same time, Spencer's recruiting person is just like, oh, don't be on the social justice cap. Don't do this. And Spencer's like, I'm not a social justice warrior. I'm just Spencer.
And I was like, you're a whole clown because you are in the middle of your community bigger than Liv is sometimes.
Which I didn't understand the social justice, him saying that he wasn't a social justice warrior. I just feel like that's always used as like it's used as an insult. So I was surprised that line of dialogue, him actually saying social justice warrior, was in there. And I was like, is anybody else noticing this? Because I didn't.
And
I wasn't a fan.
I wasn't a fan because I do this work all the time, and so when I hear the word social justice warrior,
we've talked about this too. We're both involved in DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion work, and so yeah.
But what's interesting, because I go, Spencer, you are so deep in your community and the outcome of your community, and in
trying to stop gays, like.
I said, so while you don't like the label of social justice warrior, like no one really
He
does,
is
you
very
are
much
an
so.
activist. You're very much an activist, and
Exactly.
you just do it in a different
Getting his
lens.
getting his school to not be a charter school, like that is activism. So
Right.
for sure, for sure.
Yeah, so it's interesting on how he views it, but some
Yeah,
people do. Some
how
people
that
don't
line
like.
of dialogue
Yeah,
went.
some people don't like labels. They just say, "I do what I do. I move how I move."
Hmm.
And you don't need to label me.
And
I'll be me.
that was what the episode was about.
Yeah,
So maybe it was just like he didn't
yeah,
like the label of
right.
social justice warrior, which I understand. But we also see again Coop being there for him from a distance and really reminding him of who he is. And she sent him this little cool clip of him as a boy, just being like, "I'm Spencer James, and I'm gonna be in the NFL." It was so cute.
That was the cutest video ever, and I was like, I wish I could meet that Spencer a lot more. Because
Yes,
he
yes,
is he was so passionate to the
he
point
was
that he
so
was like
passionate.
yelling at like Coop, gosh, I'm trying to like record, and all this
It
is so.
reminded me of season one Spencer, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah. So it's very much so. So I like that
It
a
was
lot.
cute. It was cute. And we see that, you know, Coop, I'm gonna bring up your
Yeah.
favorite person ever,
Oh my
Layla.
gosh. Oh my gosh.
But we see Coop being, as she's sort of like doing this in the background for Spencer, she and Layla had been around each other, and Layla was just like still brewing over the fact that she did not notice signs with Liv for the second
And
time as far as her sobriety.
she
And I
called
was
Liv her best friend, and I was like, if I gave you the letters of best friend, you wouldn't know how to line them together. Would you stop
stop.
it?
Whereas the audience who is listening right now, I am totally on board for their friendship. I loved it. I was like, this is the Layla that I want to see
And this is the
because
Layla I don't want to
because
see.
well, we saw that she right she didn't just forget about it 2 seconds later.
Right,
We see her still stewing on this 2 weeks later after
right.
everything has gone down and still trying to figure out why she didn't see the signs, how she can be there for Olivia while still being not so cool with each other in the moment, and
Right.
so, specifically Spencer. I think we saw that she was a little bit more upset with Spencer, which pleased about, but
Very much so.
but how she could still be sort of be there for Olivia while being in this weird space. And so Coop inspires Layla to really take that first step to. There was a line about being guilty, like you could either do something positive with your guilt or you can just let it go. And so we see that propels Layla to talk to Liv a little bit later in the episode, but I want to keep the ending scene for the end.
Okay.
And before we quickly hop into Spencer tells off the recruiting guy. The recruiting guy tells Billy that he did punch Principal Carter, and
And
it
I
was really,
believe,
really bad.
and I always thought he did. I thought he like
I
lost
always
his
thought he
memory.
did too.
I
I
thought he
always thought
lost.
he did too.
I thought he lost his memory around his mother's death. Because and I had posted about how I lost my father my sophomore year in high school, and I can't remember my sophomore year of high school. I
Wow.
can remember fragments, like his death, his funeral, but I couldn't even remember when I met my friends. Like
Yeah, so it's
so,
sort of like trauma
so yeah,
induced memory
yes,
loss.
yeah. So I was like, yep,
Yeah.
I can see him doing it. That's why I was like, yeah, he punched him. I was like, ready.
Yeah, well, especially with the memory of his mom that was picked up but
Yeah.
not really addressed thus far. So I'm really interested to see how that goes in the future with that storyline and how they loop his mom back into it. We saw that regardless of all of that, he randomly taught the football players about financial literacy, which was good. Which was
Which is good.
good for them.
Right,
Good for them
right.
on financial literacy. Grace and Principal Carter, I don't care. I'm here for it.
I am here for it. So Lexi, I nailed
He
it.
brought her flowers. Okay, and what the audience hasn't told, what people on Twitter are not saying is that Principal Carter has low key been checking for Grace this entire time.
Yes, from day one. And
He will always find an excuse to talk to her
And
if you paid attention.
But what's interesting is, like, on Sunday night, I was literally in my kitchen. I was like, what is she going to see different? I was like, I bet you Dylan's little girlfriend is his daughter. And he's a single
Yeah.
father. And when I saw it, I was like, I nailed it. I nailed it. And he looks very calm and relaxed. Even kind of scared being a single
Yeah.
father because he's like,
He was chill. He was talking about Janelle Monáe when he
And-
found out his daughter was was on her period
Yo,
for the
she
first
was
time,
like, he was
which
like,
that was such a it was such an interesting storyline to bring them together. His daughter being on a period, but I've again, anytime that you can talk about really taboo topics that aren't really talked about, like
right.
financial literacy for Black youth, or women being on their period, or girls starting their period for the first time,
And
is
it'd be their
just I
father
love it.
who's raising them and
Yeah, single
finding out that
dads who have lost. Yeah, any. Yeah, I love it. I love it. When we can, I read a quote by a writer, or another TV writer recently, and she was just like, "I want stories that show Black people when they're already like in their full humanity, like they're already fully humans, right?
right,
Instead of trying to make them human for other people to watch."
right,
And this is what this episode was giving me, like
right,
fully human characters,
right,
their humanity fully realized just because they are them.
right,
And I love that about this episode for sure.
right.
Ah, and so anyway, all of that happens. Jordan apologizes to JJ and Asher and works out with them. There was supposed to be a Jordan Layla scene that was cut. I was disappointed, but
Well, can he apologize to Liv? Because Liv was trying to support him, and he like went in on her.
he's not gonna apologize. They're siblings. They're not gonna apologize.
He
To each
one
other.
day
They,
he's gonna
they
need,
just make up, 2 seconds later.
one day
and
he
it's
gonna need to
fine.
apologize to her because he has done some dirt to her like constantly, and he needs to one day just do one big apology, like one big one, like from season 1 on. He just need to apologize.
I don't mind it coming from Jordan because I'm like, they're siblings, and he has been a good brother as of late. So I'm like, okay, Jordan,
Okay.
you're okay with me for the time
For
being.
the time being.
For the time being. And so all of that happens. Spencer may get an offer from TNT. We'll see. And then we finally get to sort of the ending. Again, we've sort of touched on it, but
Before we do that,
Liv.
can we go back to the fact that Jordan goes to Spencer's house and Billy?
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yes, let's do that for 2 seconds.
Thank you for bringing that up. That's what actually caused Jordan to apologize
right.
to JJ and Asher, because he went to somebody who was going to knock some sense into
Right.
him.
But what does it feel like for a young man to go to his friend's house / brother house and find your dad there and say, "Am I interrupting something?" And I said, and I looked at the television. I was like, "Yes, you are. You're interrupting him being a father, because that's what it looks like when he's the father to someone else."
Me screaming at the television like Billy was talking to Jordan as if Jordan was in Spencer's shoes.
Right.
He was just like, "Hey, young man,
Right.
sir." He told Spencer, "See you later, talk to you later," and told Jordan, "Hey, young man,
Right.
you finally got off the couch." Like,
Yes.
what?
Yes. Like I need people to really look at that and dissect how messed up this relationship is. And
Truly,
very much so.
I really want the writers to address this on the show.
They're
as far
not.
as how Billy, we'll see. I think they have to be, because like that was a weird. They have to.
This has been
because
going on for 2.5
the fact of Jordan
seasons.
saying in the dialogue like, "Am I interrupting?" So that's just weird. Okay.
This has been going on for 2.5 seasons. They are not going to correct this.
I feel like it's so blatant this season, though, especially with him being in Crenshaw. Like, they could at least get away with it when they all live together in one house.
No,
But nah. I'm not giving them that.
NK doesn't care. As long as Spencer gets the support he needs, she don't care. She does not care that...
I will place a bet on it.
We will.
I think they're gonna address it. For sure.
Oh, gosh.
And at least this is what somebody said, actually. They were just like, they have to address it when Spencer and Olivia get together, because then obviously Billy naturally hangs out more around Spencer, and so naturally we'll get more episodes with Billy and Olivia, because
No, it's not. That's not going to happen. Billy gonna find time to just be with Spencer. It's not because
Billy doesn't care about anybody else.
No, he doesn't, because when he was dating Layla, he had no connection with Layla once.
That's true, but
Billy
you think his own daughter.
No, because Liv literally he just pays the bills. Like literally he just pays the bills. I'm serious on this one. No,
pays the bills and fixes the garbage disposal.
That's about
for
it.
Sure.
That's about it.
And yells at his daughter after he he finds out she relapsed and does nothing about his son being married. But anyway, so that was the blurb on that. Jordan encourages, Spencer encourages Jordan, and Jordan apologized for not being closer to Spencer and not encouraging when Spencer was going through his recovery after the shooting. And
Right.
that was a nice moment to see because they were sort of afraid of how Jordan would be reacting this whole episode and how he was, and so that was cool to see that call back to season 2, and then we end on the big one, which is Layla.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm saying this specifically and intentionally, Layla coming to live,
Right.
apologizing, giving the Wonder Woman pen back,
Right.
which I was here for. Go listen to episode 9 review because I was like, that Wonder Woman pen though? Because if there was ever a moment for their friendship, it was that. So she gives the Wonder Woman pen back, says, I meant every word that I said when I told you that you are courageous and that you inspire me, and that you still inspire me. And she tells Liv what Coop told Layla, and that the thing about the guilt, and that prompts Liv to then act on going to Laura's computer, finding the footage for Tamika, and releasing the footage, and also doing a podcast about where she talks about, we see the whole labels thing that we saw in the beginning.
Right.
And she talks about the label, and then she says, but Tamika was called a y'all as she was seen in the video. And I did not expect them to actually have like a simulated shooting, which I do wish they had included a trigger warning.
Right, I was about to say
the
same thing because that was a bit much for some people because literally
it was a lot.
as Liv is doing the podcast, right, I have my hand over my mouth, tears coming down my eyes.
Yeah, it was emotional.
It was very emotional, and there's people on like both sides of should she have released it, should she not have released it, what about Laura's job and everything, what about the justice and all of this, and someone literally tagged me. I was like, why are people tagging me?
It was a lot.
Like,
and props to
right.
Samantha Logan for acting that. She had a whole monologue just about how police,
right.
And props to NK for the writing as
right.
well, because she wrote the episode, but how the police it was slave patrol, like that's
right.
how we got the police, modern day police, and
right.
it ended on
right.
defund the police, which is a very powerful statement
right.
to say on a network television
right.
show.
And you got
it was just a powerful moment.
And so you got people on both sides of the aisle, and they feel whatever way that they feel based on their own experience with around this, right? This topic. And I always tell people who are not for defund the police or who are for the defund police is please go do research, like before you just start like saying this topic,
shooting off at the mouth,
or shooting off at the mouth against this topic. And I always say, and you can listen to Congress and you can listen to different people, but if you ever want to have like a very good thought process of defund the police and what people are doing, the actions behind it. Ben and Jerry's, the ice cream people, literally have a whole site that is amazing, and they break it down. They break it down for everybody.
I try to get Ben and Jerry's as much as possible because they're so for the Black community.
Yeah, and they break it down for everyone to understand. And I was posting it on my social media when that happened. So if anybody ever wants to really look into that, and then you make your decision around it. Now, Liv herself. So this is what I said. I said when Liv was drinking and driving, she was reckless, big R. Mm-hmm. Big R reckless, I'm doing it up. I'm Liv. I lost my sobriety. Now, this releasing of the video is small R reckless. Not really knowing, what the aftermath is, but knowing you want to tell the full story. The whole picture, right? And in this moment of this is what she wants to tell people and want people to understand. And from there, they get to hear and understand how they want to process it. And she's like, I'm going to give you the whole story. Not the labels, not the parts of it, not fragments of it. Here's everything. And then here's my commentary around it. And you'll have people go, well, she's a young girl and she doesn't understand the system and everything, and she shouldn't have done that as a case that is going on and all this other stuff. And I said, well, also, she's a young girl who understands that the system is messed up. Mm-hmm. And she, from her lens, how old she is, she has decided this is her lane. for a
Yeah.
moment. She's yes. So
Yeah, I also wanted to just add in quick there is that Liv is, as far as the actions that she takes that'll impact other people, she is very thoughtful about it. She doesn't just do things right in the moment unless
right,
it's running away from her own happiness sometimes. But
right,
she doesn't really do things in the moment without thinking them through.
right,
And so some people were just like, oh, she's not thinking, she just reacted, and I don't know if I believe that. I think that she thought it. She was very deliberate and very thought through. I don't think she knows the entire realm of the outcome and the
right,
consequences that'll come with that.
right,
Be that her mom getting fired, be that her possibly landing in jail, which I don't think would work for the
right,
show, be that whatever,
right,
right? But she did think through releasing that video,
right.
and what she thought was this hopefully will get some sort of, or it will help the path to justice for Tamika, because she didn't get it, and I got to go, like, she didn't get to go home and I got to go home.
And basically using her access, and it's like,
Yeah.
you know what, I'm about to release it, and this is what it is.
Yeah.
What's interesting is what she did is I was like, I see, because Carmen Nicole, if anybody would follow us on Erica Vane, Carmen Nicole was like, online sis, our baby sis out here wilding. She just gonna do whatever at this moment.
If there's one thing the Baker twins are gonna do, somebody tweeted this again. They were like, they gonna break the law. They're going to break the law.
I was like, who gonna top who?
So we will see. That is a federal crime. So it will.
Yes.
Getting into like the next episode, it
Right.
will be interesting to see the aftermath of her releasing the video. And we see in the promo, she doesn't even care. She's like, I did it.
With
It
her
was
whole,
me.
with her whole chest. I said, Jesus.
With her
Christ.
whole trust with people there.
Right.
Like, so it will be interesting to see, because we assume that she did it like with her podcast, but it looks like she might have just leaked it anonymously since they didn't know who leaked it.
No, I probably think she did it with her podcast, and they think because her podcast
But
is
how
so
would
small.
Laura not know?
Well, I don't think Laura
Because she was
listens-
like, who leaked it?
I don't think Laura listens to her podcast.
So you really think that Laura is as inept to like not even know that
Yes.
her own daughter
Yeah,
did it?
so like,
That's interesting.
I don't think she listens to her podcast. I think she has. This is how I think it probably going to play out, because you know I always got predictions. I literally think
Yeah,
she put
do
it in.
it.
I think she really put it in her podcast. I think someone like picked it up, like a teenager or whatever, and was like, "Mom, Dad, listen to this, whatever." And then someone else released it out.
On a wider scale.
Yeah, on a wider scale. That's how I
Gotcha.
think it. Because I don't see Liv going straight to like the news outlets. Like, look what my mom did. Boom. I think it came out that way. And so she was like, oh, it's out there. I might as well tell them it's my fault. Like, I did it. Because I put it out there in my podcast.
I think maybe she leaked it anonymously and then like did it also like in tandem, like with the podcast or something.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, it would be. I am going to, because we're running up on time, but I'm going to leave you with this and the audience with this. I messaged Samantha Logan on Instagram and I was just like, what a powerful portrayal of what Black people go through all of the time. And she messaged me back.
No way.
Olivia Baker messaged me back. I was so hyped. I almost cried because just personally, she's just an inspiration as an actress,
Right.
storyteller. Love this woman. And so I was so hyped. And this is the note that we're ending the podcast on.
This is my face. I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay.
So thank you for joining with me. We gotta review another episode together because this was so fun.
This was definitely fun. Definitely fun. So I anytime you want me, you got me. So I love
Dope.
this.
Okay, awesome. Talk to you all soon. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed me and Monda's discussion about episode 11, The Bigger Picture. It was just so fun. We laughed the entire time. And as always, we talked about this after we finished recording this episode. So it was just a good time. Hope to see you next week, or actually whenever the next episode premieres. So see you then.